What's going on, guys? This is Andrew with Power Fuel Training. Just wanted to touch base with you guys. It's been a while since we've posted, so I appreciate you guys sticking around, and hopefully you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, and the goal is to start putting out 2 videos per week, with some weeks having 3, and anytime me and Shamron are traveling or competing at a meet, that week might only have 1 video, just depending on how busy we are. But for the most part, we're shooting for 2 videos a week, both being educational. We want this channel to be informative. We want to get as much information out to you guys so you guys don't have questions. You guys can go to the gym and feel confident in what you're doing, and just really chase your goals and have a good source to come back to for any information you may need or questions you may have. So that being said, again, thank you guys for sticking around. And today what we're going to be going over is speed work and why it's important for powerlifting specifically, and why speed work can help in other domains as well. Before we get into that, I just want to touch base again. This is a strength building channel. 99.9% of the things we talk about is going to be how do we get stronger. So if you're going to other channels, or if you have a coach, or if your goals are bodybuilding or CrossFit or distance running or sport specific training, this may not be the optimal information for you. So for example, if you're wanting to develop a skill, if a skill like an overhead squat is something you want to develop, we will eventually touch base on Olympic lifts and how they help. But that is going to be secondary information. Primary information is going to be optimal strength and overall strength, and how strength always is going to be the base of your fitness, or it should be the base of your fitness. Because at the end of the day, if you're not strong, you're not going to be able to execute certain techniques when technique is important, for example, with those Olympic lifts. So that being said, this is a strength-based channel, and how do we get stronger in the main 3 lifts, the squat, bench, and deadlift. If you're a strong deadlifter, you're probably a good power cleaner. If you're a big squatter, you're probably a good front squatter. If you are a big bencher, you're kind of a solo act. Bench doesn't really translate to other lifts. It can help with overhead presses, but overhead presses are going to be the optimal way to get strong at overhead presses. So all that out of the way, back to what the main focus for today is, which is speed work and how speed work is important. So first and foremost, what is speed work and why do I need to do it? Speed work is going to be your training specifically for moving the barbell fast, speed, and working on developing velocity in your lifts. So why is this important? It helps us push through sticking points. So for example, we're going to be using the bench press today as our example lift. If you are missing a bench off the chest and you're kind of getting stuck 3, 4, 5 inches off the chest, typically that is a tricep deficiency, and there's multiple ways we can address that. First being your typical strengthen the triceps. Progressively overload the triceps, and eventually you will be able to press through that sticking point. Yes, that is true. However, just by doing that, you run into certain issues where a sticking point goes from 3 inches off the chest to at the chest. The goal is to never run into a sticking point, or if we do hit a sticking point, which you will, the goal is to never, but we live in reality, so you're going to hit those sticking points. The goal is to be able to press through sticking points without having to train triceps, chest, and upper back individually, because that takes longer. We want the most efficient route to the end goal, and that is going to be with speed and developing speed off the chest in the bench press. So the reason it differentiates, if I'm pressing off my chest and getting stuck off 3 inches off my chest and I work the triceps, well, then I get stuck on my chest. I got to work the chest and upper back. And then you're just in this constant loop of I'm stuck here, I'm stuck here, I'm stuck here, I'm stuck here. When if we just develop overall speed off of our chest, this will progressively overload naturally as we get stronger and faster off our chest. For example, if I am pressing off my chest and I'm able to press through a sticking point, as I add weight or as I get stronger, that sticking point or my speed of the bar is overworking or overloading the triceps. So the triceps are getting strengthened as well as the chest at the bottom. If we're constantly developing speed, we never have to focus one area. So now that we know what speed work is and why it's important and why it's a little bit more optimal than just overall spot strengthening, how do we implement it into our training? This can be done a variety of ways. Today we are focusing on using bands as a way to help develop speed. There are other ways to do this. I just prefer the bands. That's what we have at our home gym, so that's what we use. Once we go over the squat, the bench, the deadlift, and a couple of accessory movements with bands, we'll move on to some of the other things. Some of the other things might be chains, slingshots, band assisted reps, ballistic reps, plyometric reps, and just straight weight with lower percentages. Once we go through the band work and hit all the check boxes on our band work, we'll move on to one of the others. Hopefully we get a little bit of interaction with you guys. You guys can tell us what you want to see next after the bands in the comments, and we'll hit that next. So what do bands do? Bands add what's called accommodating resistance. What accommodating resistance is basically as that bar comes down to my chest and those bands are losing tension on the bar as it gets to my chest, the weight gets lighter. As I press off my chest and the bar gets further away from me and the bands gather tension, that weight gets heavier at the top. This forces me or forces you to continually produce force through the full range of motion. If I'm pressing 100 pounds here, I'm pressing 120 pounds here, 140 pounds here, I'm constantly having to exert more and more force, which is helping accelerate the bar. When those bands come off, I have trained myself to continuously develop force through the bar, through the full range of motion, and I can push through that sticking point. The reason this works, again, is because you have to produce more and more force through the full range of motion. You don't get that with straight weight. Again, we'll go over how you can, but it is specific to how you execute the movement. Now, how do I set my sets and reps up to develop speed? The way we do that, the way I do that, again, this is going to be more so for beginner and intermediate lifters. Elite, experienced lifters, they can get away with more extreme stuff, a little bit more nuanced stuff. I'm not talking to you guys. If you're already bench pressing 480 pounds, this information you probably already know, and whatever you're doing is clearly working. This is for the beginner and intermediate lifters. So the way we do speed work is by total volume. So by total volume, I mean your working sets. This does not count warm-up sets. This does not count sets that do not meet the criteria of the percentages we're supposed to be at. So total volume and percentages. The maximum total volume for speed work would be 35 reps. This is at the absolute limit. Again, elite level guys, they might go a little bit higher. Again, I'm not talking to you guys. 35 reps of total work is going to be your maximum volume for speed work. Then on the other end of the spectrum, 8 reps is going to be your minimum total volume for speed work. And the way we dictate whether we're doing 8 reps or anything in between 8 and 35 is based on the percentage of our 1 rep max for our particular wave. So, for example, speed work is done at anywhere between 55 and 85%. 55% on the lower end, obviously. 85% on the higher end, obviously. If we're At 85, we're probably doing anywhere from 8 to 12 reps total. If we're at 55%, we're doing anywhere from probably 24 to 34 or 35 reps total, just depending on the workload and where we are in our program cycle. Example, if we are working with 60% as our working weight, so we would take 60% of our 1 rep max. That is the weight that is on the bar. It also includes the bar for people. People tend to get confused when it comes to speed work. 60% is the percentage of total weight on the bar, barbell included. So if you squat or if you bench 100 pounds and we're working with 60%, you would put 60 pounds on the bar. Again, if that includes the barbell, you would put a 5, a 5, a 2.5, a 2.5. You're at 60 pounds. That's the weight you're using for your sets and reps for your speed work. Now, once you have got your bar loaded, you will then add 25 to 35% band tension. This is calculated at the top of the rep. So you would take a suitcase scale, a fish scale, or some sort of pull metric scale to figure out your band tension. Again, it needs to be calculated at the very top where it's at its maximum, and it needs to be 25 to 35% of your 1 rep max. So again, if we're working at 60% of our 1 rep max, and our 1 rep max is 100 pounds, we have our 60 pounds on the bar, and then we will have 25% band tension. So 25 pounds of band tension. That's 12.5 pounds on this band on the left side, 12.5 pounds of band tension on the right side, equaling 25 pounds. That is how you dictate and determine the weight on the bar and the tension on the bar. I need to talk. Once you have that set up, okay, and I'll show you a couple ways to set that up in this video. Once you have that set up, we are then going to do our sets and our reps. Again, since the range goes from 55 to 85%, if we're at 60, we're on the lower end of the spectrum. We're gonna be doing 7 sets of 4, 28 reps. We might do 8 sets of 3 on the lower end if we're kind of working towards a meet or something. This is our first cycle or our first wave of banded work. Typically 60% kind of bounces around anywhere from 18 total reps to 28 total reps. Anywhere in that realm at 60%, you're golden, okay? Now, you can break it up however you want. The key is the bar needs to move fast every single rep. So if your plan is to go in and do 30 reps of total volume at 60%, and you're just going to do 3 sets of 10 because you don't have a lot of time, that's fine, as long as all 10 reps in each set are fast and explosive. Most people don't have the fitness to get through 3 sets of 10. However, CrossFitters are starting to come into the powerlifting realm. That's where I came from originally. They tend to have a little bit more fitness and they can get away with those big sets. However, for the general public, I would say your sweet spot is 5x5, maybe 6x4, something like that. So all 5 or 4 reps are done explosively and done quickly. Okay, that is down fast, exploding fast. All right, don't just let it slam into your chest. There is some control, but it needs to move rather quickly down and then as fast as possible off the chest for each set and each rep. If at any point your reps slow down, other than maybe your very last set, you either need to bring your sets up, reps down to equal that total volume, or you need to lose some band tension. If you're on that 35%, come down to 25 or come down to 30. Regardless, just make sure every rep is done fast. You can't get fast if you move slow, so why move slow?